Howdy, today on Flippin Science, we're looking at the immune system.
I've got you under my skin. I've got you deep in the heart of me. So deep in my heart that you're really a part of me.
So the science understanding we're going to look at, the human immune system protects the body against disease by physical barriers, the innate immune response, and the adaptive immune response. So the job of the immune system is to protect you from infection by pathogens, and there's several different parts to it, and they vary in complexity. Overall, it is quite a complex system, so we're just going to look at it in a little bit of detail, not too much detail. If your immune system isn't working or is compromised, then you are vulnerable to infection. So making sure your immune system is working is very, very important. There's two levels of resistance. Innate attacks everything, and acquired or specific attacks specific pathogens. So the innate immune response targets any pathogen or even other foreign material that your body encounters. It's the first line of defense, and there's physical barriers, there's certain cells and tissues, and also some chemical mediators that all act to stop infections. So we'll start by looking at some physical barriers. So these stop pathogens getting into tissues deeply by blocking their path, essentially. So skin, eyes, blood, respiratory and digestive system, there's all systems inside there that stops pathogens getting too deeply in you and doing too much damage. The skin, it's a waterproof barrier, and that means that it's very hard for pathogens to get in. That means if you have any breaks in your skin, that can be quite bad. Your eyes produce tears that have an enzyme that can kill bacteria. Blood has various things floating around in it that can seal up wounds to stop pathogens getting in. You produce mucus in the respiratory system that traps bacteria and also kills pathogens. And in your digestive system, you have saliva that can kill bacteria, but also acid in your stomach that can kill bacteria. So there's many different ways that you can just stop things from getting in. You have specific cells and tissues that can respond to infection that will target everything. There's a wide variety of white blood cells, and some target any pathogen floating around in the blood. And they provide a variety of ways to kill pathogens. Some just eat them. These are called macrophages. Some release compounds that can kill the pathogens, and some can secrete antibodies that target specific pathogens. This can be part of the specific immune response rather than the general one, but it can also happen in the general one too. There's also this thing called inflammation. You can see this person here has inflammation on their toes. This is where your tissues become more permeable to blood, so more blood flows there. That means you get more white blood cells, which can kill pathogens. It also increases the temperature, and having a hotter area can kill pathogens, and it also signals other things to happen as well. And all of these things can kill pathogens if it's happening. So this is inflammation. The inflammatory response is part of the innate immune system as well. There's also chemical mediators that are just floating around the blood. There's this thing called complement, which is a range of protein, and also interferons, which are specific proteins. And what they do is they signal white blood cells that there's an infection occurring, and that kicks off a bit of the inflammation response. Here's a picture showing what complement does. So really it's just signaling to other cells that there's an infective agent nearby, and it can lead eventually to the cells that are infecting being blown up. Interferon is a chemical messenger, so a cell that's being attacked gives off a bit of interferon. That signals to other cells to come and attack that cell that's being attacked, and then by killing that you kill the infection, theoretically. So the acquired immune response is different in that it develops over the course of your life. As you're exposed to pathogens, your body remembers those pathogens in order to protect you from future infections of those pathogens. And it's all moderated by white blood cells, which have a specific name, lymphocytes. And these lymphocytes, they help your body to remember the infections by producing antibodies in some cases. There's a wide range of lymphocytes, so T cells, B cells, antigen-presenting cells. It gets quite complicated, but we're just going to go through it briefly. Before we do, we're going to talk about what an antigen is. So an antigen is parts of a pathogen that the immune system can recognize. So pathogens have things like proteins or sugars on the outside, and they can fit into the legs of an antibody. So antibodies have different shapes down the bottom, and if an antibody can bind to one of those pokey outy proteins or sugars, it sticks together, and that's what the antigen is. So the antigen is the part that the antibody can attach to, and these will be important. So let's look at some of the lymphocytes and what they do. there's really two systems. There's the cell-mediated and the humour system, but we're not going to go into that in too much detail. Lymphocytes can identify microorganisms that shouldn't be there. If they're different from you, so you can identify that. And they can do a lot of things. Some of them eat pathogens, so phagocytes eat pathogens. And what they do once they've eaten them is they keep bits on their surface. So they keep some of the antigens from the pathogen on the surface of the cell. Then you get helper T cells attaching to those antigens, and that gives off a signal to other cells to look for that specific shape of antigen. When they find it, they kill it. So we've got a bit of a picture down here. So here's a macrophage eating an infected cell. It's taking bits of the infected cell and making an antigen on the outside. Sorry, that's the presenting it. And then T cells stick to those antigens and start to produce other T cells with that shape on it that recognizes the antigen, and then it can target infected cells. In another system, you get antibodies being produced. So B cells make antibodies, which are small proteins and sugars, so glycoproteins. They have a little Y shape, so that's what they look like when you see them. So down here we've got a picture of those antibodies. And their job is to stick to the antigens on pathogens. When they stick, they can stop the pathogens from invading cells, and they also signal to the immune system to start attacking the cells that they're attached to. B cells, once they recognize an antigen and are attaching to it, they can produce 2,000 antibodies a second, which is a lot. And they also produce memory B cells, which remember the infection, and they hang around in your body for a long time, so that if you're infected again, that reduces the effect of the infection. So this picture here shows this process. So here you have your pathogen with the antigens on the outside. Here you have a B cell. It's attached to the antigen, and that stimulates it. When it does that, it starts to reproduce, and it produces a few different types of cells. Some of them start to produce lots of antibodies. So here's the cells down here, the B cells that are making, they're called plasma cells. They're producing antibodies at the rate of 2,000 per second. Then there's some other cells called memory B cells, which remember the shape of the antigen, so that if you're infected, these cells can reproduce really, really quickly and start producing a lot of antibodies really, really quickly. The antibodies match up to the specific shape of the antigen from that pathogen. And this is one of the ways that your body remembers the infection. So today on Flipping Science, we looked at briefly how the immune system works. That's it for Flipping Science today. See ya.